Howdy, howdy.
How you doing, man?
I'm all right. Just getting over jet lag.
You just came back from Australia. The rest of the band was there with you too, right?
No, it's just me by myself. 9 days. It's where my girlfriend's family is. So we were there for New Year's and Christmas and all that kind of stuff. And now I'm just waking up at 1 in the morning, wondering why I keep waking up. It's pitch black outside. I don't know, but it's just you get used to it.
Yeah, eventually your body clock will force its way back into normal, I guess.
Waiting for it.
Any day now. Well,
Yeah.
in between awkward wake ups and early bedtimes, Culture Wars is working on their next studio album. So it's still probably a little too early to tell, but I want to know what you can tell us about it so far. Any themes, any names, any sonic changes?
Yeah, I mean, a handful of things. I mean, for us, this was all pretty much written during the pandemic. We're kind of at the tail end of recording it. But because of that, you got a lot of time on your hands, and we just kind of decided, if it wasn't good enough with just a vocal and a guitar, or just a vocal and a piano, then it wasn't good enough. So as opposed to kind of like making, tracks or ideas or just kind of going from all directions, it was like, if it's not just, with one thing, if it's not good enough, then we don't move forward. And so, that doesn't mean that we wouldn't have tried other things, but that just seemed to be working, and just we continued to just do that over and over and over again. So a lot of patience and a lot of focus on that. But because of that, it's pretty much guitar, bass, and drums and vocal, and that's kind of it. Because in the end, you start doing it later, and you're like, why? We don't really need to do that or do this. So in a way, it's kind of more. I don't know. In some ways, it's more of a band or a rock band or whatever you want to call it, and in other ways, it's as they say, catchier because we spent so much time on it. So we'll kind of see what other people think of it, but that's just been my observation of it. But it's been challenging, which is good.
Now, does that mean for Culture Wars, who I think as a band have always sort of had this almost like pop rock idea to it,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of Depeche Mode influence here and there,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps? Does that mean that your influences for this record are changing? And if so, who would you kind of cite?
I don't know that the influences are necessarily changing, because if I was to like kind of like essentially I would just be naming other bands that are in the same realm that just aren't using as many synths. And so for us, it wasn't like we don't like synths, let's not do that anymore. It was just what it was. I mean, each I mean, we still use synths and certain stuff. It's just it depends on the song. So it's just what's the best thing for this thing that already exists. And so, in a lot of cases, it became, just letting the band play and be good at their instruments, which we were. But in this case, it's, not more evident or something, but there's just a lot more of it. So,
Well, let's talk about the timetable for this project because you mentioned
yeah.
songs have been written a lot during 2020, probably 2021 as well, through the
Hmm.
pandemic. Now
Yeah.
we're getting to that magical time where you're getting ready to put it out into the world. When abouts do you think fans can expect that?
Well, for us, we've been, an independent band for a very, very long time. And, we're kind of looking at the record that we've made and going, maybe, maybe we do something different here. So, we're really, I'd say a couple months from the mixing process, and then that has its own, life. But as that's kind of starting to finish, I'd say that now we're at the point where we have things that we could, use to pitch and expand our team and what have you. But I think for us, we're just like, this is just too good to do what we've been doing. We need to like make sure we have our ducks in a row and really get it right.
Not just entering into a new musical era, but maybe entering into a new era of strategy and how you go about making sure that people hear these songs, I guess.
Yeah, and with the internet and everything, it's always the goalpost is always moving, and there's always everything's always changing. So, in the end, what matters is the music, but how that works. I mean, I think even other musicians you talk to, what they used to say works on TikTok or something, for as an example, doesn't work anymore, right? That's so it's always changing. But for us, it's let's get this right because we just feel like this is kind of, you always feel like it's the best thing you've ever done, but we feel pretty strongly that we would be, hurting ourselves to not really see it out.
Since you brought it up, I'll ask any TikTok worthy tracks on the next Culture Wars record?
I mean, sure. I don't know. If yeah, maybe. I mean, sure. Yeah. For me, I'm 31. I don't what's TikTok worthy. I don't really. I'm happy that we've had the success or whatever you want to call it that we've had on TikTok, but my understanding of it is I don't have an understanding of
I mean, even at 26, I'm supposed to know this stuff and I just don't. Like
it.
people
Yeah.
go, hey, you're young, you know TikTok, what's going on? I'm like, couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like whenever I have to consciously be like, oh yeah, it's not. I've always just been more focused on what the guys like what we're doing.
Now that's where you and I met for the first time. Just kind of briefly in passing, we
Yeah.
met at a show at X103
Yeah.
now, Xmas Bash. And that is where a lot of this music, especially that's where a lot of this music really shines to its fullest extent. With
Mm.
these new songs, when you're taking them up on stage, how quickly do you want to introduce some of these new records to fans? When you're playing shows, do you want to ease them in slowly but surely, or do you want to really take over the set list with this new record?
Well, I mean, we're playing some of the new stuff now.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, we've only put out EPs our entire career, so this is really the first actual album. I think that it will kind of be redefining. And we'll see. But of course, maybe you never know how things work out. But in our minds, this is redefining to a point where it's the new album, and then three or four from everything else.
What about with all the free time that you guys must have not going on tour? With studio time, that's obviously your core focus right now. So you're writing songs, you're creating songs, you're building track by track, take by take, you're building an album now. But
Mm.
I mean, I've made albums before. I'm not at all a successful musician or anything like that. But I would imagine if that were my only job to do for the time being, that I'd be exploring my hobbies too. So what else have you
Mm.
got going on?
I'm so type A in my personality that the majority of my time is spent, especially now, just writing. So, I mean, like my day to day, I mean, my producer and I, Caleb, like, our, our, our free time, if we're not like just hanging out and like making records, is like, just eating food and drinking sake or something. I just doing something random. But in the weekdays, I mean, the majority of my life is like waking up very early in the morning, going to the gym at like 6, 7 in the morning, and then, eating, showering, and then spending the rest of the day, writing. And so I'm kind of at a point now where even though we just finished it, I'm like, well, just the cycle of albums and records and whatever. It's like, let's say we figure all our stuff out, and then we get a team together and we get things mixed, and I mean that's like maybe 6 months from now or something, and in the time of that, then you put out one single, and then that single has to, so the amount of time that you actually have is kind of endless. And so in my mind, the album, even if we completely finish it, if I keep writing and I go, well, hold on, should we squeeze this one in? I mean, there's no reason not to until it's out.
Does that make the songwriting process and the recording process almost feel like a real job sometimes?
No, I mean, there's you learn ways to kind of get around writer's block and stuff like that. And for me, I mean, I'm a film school kid as well. So and I was a screenwriting major. So I've gotten around enough writer's blocks enough to kind of know the tricks. So, it feels like a job in certain aspects, but not in the writing, because if you're not feeling it, you're not feeling it. You just kind of maybe get on YouTube and watch some music videos or watch like a documentary for like 30 minutes and then come back. I mean, when you've got all day, you can pivot and try and reorient yourself and not just stare at a wall and just be like, waiting for something. So there's a lot of ways to kind of get around it.
All of this comes together to sort of paint the picture that obviously you guys are working on something very exciting as an artist, as a group. And when it comes time to share that with the world, hopefully it'll be a pleasant surprise for some people. Hopefully it'll be something that I guess takes the audience aback and goes, wow, now this is really something. Is that the reaction you're kind of gunning for?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like industry stuff, that's the reaction we've been getting. And one of my favorites was, I'm not going to say who it was, but someone who we know who knows who our other stuff kind of turned around and went, well, that's really good. And I was like, he was like, he goes, well, that's a lot better than the previous stuff. And I was like, hey, man, like,
That's almost a little insulting because that implies the
I know.
wasn't good.
Right, right. And I was like, well, hey, man, like, and you're like, no, that's not it. And I'm like, I'm messing with you, but it was funny. But that's what you want. I mean, because it means that the work means something. I mean, I'm never going to be offended by any of that.
Absolutely. Last one before I let you go here, Alex.
Yeah.
Any nuggets, any teasers about all of this that you can drop?
I wish there was something I could think of, to be honest. I mean, I can't say that the majority of it is tracked and done, but if only there was a teaser. I don't think we're done playing shows because whether we just go crazy. Like coming to Colorado Springs was a nice like break for us, which was nice. Future's bright and open, but just we're gonna keep working away.
The future's open and the schedule is too. So let's see what we
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Well, that's the main man from Culture Wars. Alex, thank you so much for your time, dude.
yeah. Appreciate it.